Abstract Art with Ashley Halloran. Abstract art. What is it? Abstract art is non-representational, focusing more on the process. However, there is no universal agreement on its actual definition. Artists are merely experimenting with the elements of art. It's not all about detailing a picture nor portraying a picture at all, but instead creating an opportunity for people to feel or see something through the atmosphere created by the painting. What do you see or feel when you look at any of these paintings? If you saw a woman in The Weeping Woman by Pablo Picasso, this was actually inspired from authentic cubism. It is synthetic cubist. There are many types of abstract art, some of them including surrealism, abstract expressionism, dadaism, cubism, fauvism, suprematism, art informel, neoplatism, de style, and many more based from these movements. These types of abstract art are generally rooted from Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, and Cubism. Cubism can be analytical, which is a distorted real-life image, or synthetic. Synthetic cubism, was brought upon in 1912. It changed the rules of perspective. Cubism evolved at the beginning of the 20th century in an attempt to revamp the traditional art process, as it challenges and goes beyond the perspective limitations of art and representation of a piece by introducing relativity. It shows many views at one time. Without reading the titles, what do you think this is a picture of? Is it realistic? The Picasso piece of this still life had images from life glued on to create the final collage, or the first collage technique. With what I see as a building, they are drawn at different angles with different perspective. Pablo Picasso and George Braque were one of the earliest Cubist artists. However, many new artists have used this style of abstract art. Expressionism is another type of abstract art. What can you see in these pictures? Do they make you feel the same or different? If you were to show the picture to someone else, would their answer be the same? These pictures, the top one is from Dina Wakefield, and the bottom one, the bottom left, is by Kandinsky, and the bottom right is by Pollock. You can notice that they have very different styles in their painting. Dina Wakefield and Pollock both use a paint pouring technique, whilst in the Kandinsky painting there is more watercolor painting involved. Although they may look different, each of these artists get inspired by what they see or feel and experiment with different techniques and materials in order to express themselves. Let's have a look at some abstract expressionists. This is Jackson Pollock's painting, Autumn Nature. He made this painting through dripping paint. He had paint on the end of his paintbrush and flicked his hand, arm, and body to create the different lines and textures that we see on the page. He famously states, "When I am painting, I am not aware of what I am doing." He doesn't necessarily have an image in mind. Instead, he encounters the painting, which means the painting paints itself, and it records what the painter has experienced. He has to use enamel house paint in order to create the type of painting he was looking for. The enamel house paint is thin enough to create the lines, swirls and tick marks that he is wanting to contrast each other. He begins by pouring the black paint onto the canvas. He has the black paint at the end of his brush and flicks his hand, arm and body to create different swirls all over the outstretched canvas. He then adds another layer of a different colour on top, white, then follows with brown and grey tones, using the same type of house paint that can leave a nice linear swirl, flick mark, dot, or other contrasting marks. The thick textural areas and tick-like marks contrasting the elegant smooth curving lines suggest chaos amongst order. Kandinsky is another abstract expressionist, except he uses more colours, bright colours, to help portray what he is trying to accomplish. His early work was in Fauvism and used a gradual abstraction approach to his paintings. So we can see in the top left, the De Bleu Ritter was slowly removing the narrative and objective content from his oil on canvas painting. In sky blue, the floating shapes were actually inspired from the creatures that he saw on the Normandy coast floating along the sea. And then yellow, red and blue was almost fully abstraction, with primary shapes each with its own colour. In yellow, red and blue, Kandinsky is experimenting with form and colour. When you see the coloured grid is less dominant than the black and white grid. That is due to choosing colours which are in the background. These are some techniques that you can use to hide or portray things that you want to see more easily in your abstract paintings. So what have we learnt? What do artists use to express themselves? They challenge ideas of perspective. They use light and shade, the amount of light, where the light is coming from. They use the type of brush stroke and texture of the painting. They use colour, and they have a different paint type for what they're trying to achieve. Paintings, abstract paintings, range from part abstraction to full abstraction. Can you try arrange these paintings from least abstracted to most abstracted? Using what we have learnt, let's create our own abstract painting. Let's pretend that we are Jackson Pollock and we are encountering what the painting is trying to portray to us. Let's choose the colours that represent us and create a painting to portray how we are feeling today.